Welcome back, guys. In this video we're going to cover the 4 types of operators. Alright guys, so operators are symbols used to perform operations on variables and values. I know it might sound a bit complicated, but trust me, you'll understand them once we start using them. First, we're going to be covering arithmetic operators. And as the name suggests, arithmetic operators allow us to perform mathematical operations. So first we have the plus operator, and the plus operator allows us to add numbers together. So as you guys can see, we have 2 integer variables, num1 and num2. Let's create a result variable that's equal to num1 plus num2. So first I'm just going to type result equals num1 plus num2. Then let's print the result. So I'll just type fmt.println result. Now let's run the code. And as you guys can see, result is equal to num1 plus num2, which is 15. We can also use arithmetic operators on values directly. So let's just go right here and type in plus 5. Now let's run the code again. And as you guys can see, 5 was also added, giving us 20. Next we have the minus sign operator. And as expected, the minus sign operator allows us to subtract. First, let's just delete the plus 5 right here, and then let's replace this plus sign with a minus sign. Now let's run the code, and as you guys can see, we got 5, since 10 minus 5 is equal to 5. We also have the asterisk operator, and the asterisk is used to multiply. So let's just replace the minus sign right here with the asterisk. Now let's run the code, and as you guys can see, result is now equal to num1 times num2, which is 50. Now I'll show you guys the slash operator, and the slash operator is used for division. So let's delete the asterisk right here and put slash. Now let's run the code, and as you guys can see, 2 was printed since 10 divided by 5 is 2. Now we're going to be looking at modulus, so the percentage sign is the modulus operator. And modulus divides the first number by the second number and gives us the remainder. So let's delete our slash and put a percentage sign right here so we can use modulus. Now let's run the code, and as you guys can see, we got 0 since 5 goes into 10 2 times but leaves 0 remainder. Let's see what happens if we change num2 to 3, just like this. Now let's run the code again, and as you can see, we got 1 since 3 goes into 10 3 times and leaves a remainder of 1. Now I'll show you guys the double plus operator. And the double plus operator is used to increment a variable's value. So let's just go ahead and delete this code right here. Now let's type num1 plus plus. And then down here, let's just print out num1. Now let's run the code, and as you guys can see, num1's value was increased by 1. That's because the plus plus operator increases the variable's value by 1. So I just want to show you guys something real quick. So I'm just going to comment out this line of code right here, and I'm just going to type num1 equals num1 plus 1. And these 2 lines of code actually function exactly the same. So let's just run the code again, and as you can see, we still get 11. We also have double minus sign, which is used for decrementing a value. So let's just delete this real quick and then uncomment this line of code. Now let's replace the plus plus with minus sign minus sign. Now let's run the code. And as you guys can see, the value of num1 was decreased by 1. Now we're going to be covering assignment operators. Assignment operators allow us to assign a new value to a variable. I have a list of assignment operators here, and these aren't all of them, but these are the most common ones. First, we have the equal sign operator, which you should be familiar with since we've been using it in the previous videos. The equal sign operator assigns the variable the value on the right. And as you guys can see, I have some simple code right here that declares a variable named num and assigns it a value of 10. And then down here, we print the value in num. So right here, I'm just going to type num equals 5. Now let's run the code. And as you guys can see, 5 was printed since we assigned num the value of 5. Next, we have the plus equals operator and the minus equals operator. The plus equal operator adds the number on the right side to the current value in the variable and then assigns the sum to the variable. I know it sounds a bit complicated, but let me show you. So instead of this equal sign right here, let's just delete this and put plus equals. Now let's run the code. And as you guys can see, the value of our num variable was increased by 5. Its value was set to its original value plus the value on the right side of the plus equals operator. So what happened is num's original value is 10, so it did 10 plus 5 and then assigned the sum, which is 15, to num. The minus equal operator is the same as the plus equal operator but for subtraction. So instead of plus equal, let's just put minus equal right here. Now let's run the code. And as you guys can see, 5 was subtracted instead of added, giving us 5. The asterisk equal operator also works the same as the plus equal and minus equal operators, but with multiplication. So let's replace the minus sign right here with an asterisk. Now let's run the code again, and as you can see, num's value was changed to 10 times 5, which is 50. We also have the slash equals operator, which works the same but for division. So instead of times equal, let's just put slash equal. Now let's run the code again, and as you can see, we got 2, since 10 divided by 5 is equal to 2. The last assignment operator we'll be covering is percentage sign equal, which is also known as the modulus assignment operator. The percentage sign equal operator divides the original value in the variable by the number to the right of of the percentage sign equal and assigns the remainder to the variable. It sounds a bit complicated, so let me just show you. Let's just replace this slash right here with a percentage sign just like this. Now let's run the code. And as you guys can see, 0 was printed because 10 divided by 5 is 2 with a remainder of 0. Now let's go ahead and replace 5 with 4 just like this. Now let's run the code again, and as you can see, 2 was printed since 10 divided by 4 is 2 and we get a remainder of 2. Now we're going to be covering comparison operators, and comparison operators allow us to compare variables and values. As you guys can see, I have a list of the comparison operators, and we have two int variables, num1 which is equal to 10 and num2 which is equal to 5, just like earlier. Let's try using the double equal sign operator to see if num1 is equal to num2. So let's just go down right here and type in fmt.println num1 double equal sign num2. Now let's just go ahead and run the code. And as you guys can see, false was printed. That's because this right here where we have num1 equals num2 is known as a comparison statement. A comparison statement will evaluate to a bool which is true if the statement is true and false if the statement is false. In our case, we have num1 is equal to num2, which is false. And whenever we use any of these comparison operators, we're creating a comparison statement. So instead of equals equals, let's try put exclamation mark equals, which means not equal to. And this comparison statement is checking if the values are not equal to each other. So let's run the code. And as you can see, we got true since num1 is not equal to num2, meaning that this comparison expression right here is true. We also have greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, and less than or equal to. And you can see them right here. And all of these work similarly, so I'm not going to use all of them in our code. Let's just try using greater than right here, so I'm just going to delete the exclamation mark equal and put the greater than sign. Now let's run the code. And as you guys can see, this comparison statement evaluated to true since num1 is greater than num2. The last type of operators we're going to be covering is logical operators. And logical operators allow us to combine multiple comparison statements. Let me just show you what I mean. So as you guys can see, I have a isSunny variable right here which is equal to true, and I have a temperature variable right here which is equal to 20. Let's say we can only go outside if it's sunny and if the temperature is above 0 degrees. So let's make our program print out if we can go outside or not. I'm going to make a new variable here and I'm just going to name it can go outside. Now let's make it equal to isSunny, and so I'm just going to put double and sign, temperature greater than 0. So let's break down what's happening in this line of code right here. So all of this right here is only going to evaluate to true if these two statements are equal to true. If the statement on the left side or right side is equal to false, all of this is going to evaluate to false. So let's just go ahead and print out can go outside right here. Now let's run the code, and as you guys can see, true is printed since isSunny is true and temperature greater than 0 is also true. Now let's try changing isSunny to false. Now let's run the code again, and as you guys can see, false was printed since both of the conditions here were not true. Next we have or, and as you guys can see, I have a holiday and completed chores variable. Let's make our program print if you can go outside or not. And let's say you can only go outside if it's a holiday or you've completed all of your chores. So let's just make a variable right here and let's just name it can go outside. And let's make it equal to holiday or completed chores. And then down here, let's just print out can go outside. Now let's just break down this line of code right here. So if either of these comparison statements are true, the entire statement will evaluate to true. The statement can only evaluate to false if the statements on both sides are false. So let's run the code. And as you guys can see, true was printed since one of the two statements was true. In this case, it was a statement right here that was true, completed chores. Let's see what happens if we change completed chores to false. Now let's run the code again, and as you guys can see, false was printed since this expression or this expression was not true. The last thing we'll be covering in this video is not. If you put not before something that's true, it will evaluate to false. And if you put not before something that's false, it will evaluate to true. So as you guys can see, I have an isRaining variable right here, and let's just print out isRaining. So I'm just going to type fmt.println isRaining. Now let's run the code, and as expected, false was printed out since isRaining is equal to false. Now let's put an exclamation mark before isRaining, which is the not operator. Now let's run the code again, and as you guys can see, true was printed since isRaining is false. Let's try changing isRaining to true, so I'm just going to delete false right here and type in true. Now let's run the code again, and as you can see, false was printed since isRaining is true. All you need to remember is that not will always evaluate to the opposite of the condition after it. So in this case, since this condition right here is true, not isRaining is going to evaluate to false. Speaking of not, I know a lot of you are not subscribed. I'd really appreciate if you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future videos.